The summons. Ambassador Zephyr Kane stepped off the transport shuttle onto Station Lumina, the floating capital of the Galactic Council. The metallic taste of recycled air hit her tongue as artificial gravity settled around her boots. She adjusted her crimson diplomatic sash and squared her shoulders. Beside her, Commander Reeves Ashford carried a single data tablet. His military posture contrasted with her diplomatic ease, but his gray eyes held the same determination. They were the first humans ever invited to address the council chambers, and everyone knew it was no honor. "Remember," Zephyr whispered as they walked through corridors lined with species from 1,000 worlds, "we're not here to beg." "Wouldn't dream of it," Reeves replied. The Valdrix Empire had orchestrated this moment perfectly. For 3 cycles they'd blocked every human trade route, seized colony supplies, and turned half the galaxy against Earth's aggressive expansion. Now they'd magnanimously offered humanity one chance to defend themselves before the Council voted on sanctions that would strangle human civilization in its cradle. High Chancellor Vorn waited in the preparation chamber. The Valdrix leader's crystalline exoskeleton refracted light into intimidating patterns across his 12-foot frame. His translator implant hummed. "Ambassador Kane. How quaint that Earth sends a female to speak for warriors." His mandibles clicked with amusement. "Your species disappoints before you even begin." Zephyr smiled coldly. "How progressive that the Valdrix recognize competence regardless of gender. I had heard your empire was more primitive." Vorn's chromatic display flared orange with irritation, but he gestured toward the chamber doors. "You have 1 standard hour to present your case. The Council has already reviewed our evidence of human aggression. I suspect you'll need far less time to condemn yourselves." The doors opened to reveal the amphitheater beyond. Thousands of species filled the tiered seating. The air thrummed with translated conversations in 100 languages. At the center, the 7 seats of judgment rose on a dais, each occupied by representatives of the galaxy's eldest civilizations. Zephyr and Reeves descended to the speaking platform. A spotlight found them. The chamber fell silent. Arbiter Quellen of the Etherian Collective spoke first, his energy form pulsing with authority. "Humanity stands accused of territorial expansion, resource hoarding, militaristic colonization, and threatening established trade networks. High Chancellor Vorn has presented substantial evidence. We now grant you opportunity to respond." Zephyr activated the holo display. Instead of defensive arguments or pleas for understanding, she projected a simple image, a human child's drawing of a spaceship reaching for stars. "Honored Council, I won't waste time disputing the Chancellor's evidence. Every claim he's made is accurate." Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. Reeves stood motionless, trusting her completely. "We are expanding. We are claiming resources. We are building military vessels." Zephyr's voice carried across the amphitheater. "But the Chancellor has made one critical error in his presentation. He's told you what we're doing. He's never asked why species like mine do what we do." The display shifted to show Earth's history. Wars, plagues, extinctions, near annihilations. Humans evolved on a death world. We clawed our way up from prey animals to apex predators. We survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, and our own self-destructive tendencies. We reached space not because it was easy, but because staying on one world meant extinction. Images flowed across the display: human colonies on toxic worlds, settlements in asteroid fields, habitats in the crushing depths of gas giants. "You call us aggressive. We call it survival. You see resource hoarding. We see preparing for the next disaster. You fear our military expansion." She paused. "We fear what happens when we're not strong enough to protect our own." Vorn's voice cut through the chamber. "Fearmongering. The galaxy has been at peace for 1,000 cycles. Your paranoia is not justification for destabilizing established order." "Peace?" Zephyr turned to face him directly. "Chancellor, when was the last time the Valdrix Empire faced an existential threat? When did your species nearly go extinct? When did you huddle in caves wondering if tomorrow would come?" Vorn's exoskeleton flickered uncertainly. "That's what I thought." Zephyr turned back to the Council. "Humanity isn't a threat to galactic peace. We're a mirror showing you what you've forgotten. And that, honored Council, is why the Chancellor really wants us silenced." The chamber erupted in debate as Arbiter Quellen called for order. Zephyr caught Reeves's eye. He nodded once, barely visible. They'd just declared war on the galaxy's most powerful empire. And they were only getting started. The Chancellor's wrath. The deliberation recess lasted 30 minutes. Zephyr and Reeves stood in the holding area while the council chambers buzzed with unprecedented chaos. Through the transparent walls, they could see delegates arguing in clusters, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. "That was quite the opening salvo," Reeves said quietly. "Command is going to either promote you or court-martial you. Probably both." Zephyr pulled up her tactical display, monitoring communication channels. Earth's encrypted military frequency showed green. Admiral Chen had positioned the Third Fleet exactly as planned. The chamber doors opened. Chancellor Vorn entered with 6 armed guards, their plasma rifles humming with barely contained energy. His crystalline form blazed crimson with fury. "You dare insult the Valdrix Empire before the Council? You compound your species' crimes with arrogance." His translator struggled to convey the venomous intensity of his words. Zephyr faced him calmly. "I stated facts, Chancellor. If truth insults you, perhaps examine what you're defending. You want to discuss truth?" Vorn gestured, and a holographic display materialized. "Let me show the Council what humanity truly is." Images appeared: human warships destroying a Valdrix mining station, human marines storming a trade depot, human colonists claiming a disputed moon. "This is the new Perth incident," Vorn declared. "Human aggression, unprovoked and brutal. 17 Valdrix citizens dead. And this is merely one example among dozens." Reeves stepped forward. "Show them the timestamp." "Excuse me?" "The timestamp on that station attack. Show them when it occurred." Vorn hesitated, then displayed the date. Reeves pulled up his own data. 6 hours before your unprovoked attack, a Valdrix destroyer fired on the civilian transport Shenzhou, killing 300 human colonists. Men, women, and children. Their crime? Crossing through what you unilaterally declared Valdrix territory, despite that space being neutral under Council law for 2 centuries. The energy shifted. Several Council delegates began accessing their own records. New Perth wasn't aggression, Chancellor. It was retaliation. And it was restrained. The Marines disabled your station and took prisoners instead of simply destroying it. We could have turned it to vapor. We chose mercy. Vorn's display flickered yellow. "You cannot justify." "I'm not justifying anything." Reeves's voice carried the weight of command. "I'm providing context you deliberately omitted. Shall we discuss the other incidents? I have complete records of every engagement. Complete records of who fired first, who targeted civilians, who honored ceasefires and who violated them." Zephyr watched the Council representatives. She could see the calculations happening behind alien eyes. Vorn had painted humans as unpredictable aggressors. Now his narrative was crumbling. Arbiter Quellen's energy form pulsed. "Chancellor Vorn, these are serious allegations of evidence manipulation. Why were these contextual details absent from your initial presentation?" "Because the Valdrix Empire," Zephyr interjected smoothly, "has enjoyed unchallenged dominance for so long they forgot what accountability looks like." Vorn turned on her. "You know nothing of dominance, human. Your species has existed in space for barely a generation. The Valdrix Empire has guided galactic civilization for millennia. We built the trade networks you now exploit. We established the peace you now threaten. We created order from chaos." "Order." Zephyr let the word hang. "Is that what you call it when you control 70% of rare mineral rights? When you dictate which species get council seats and which don't? When you blockade human colonies that compete with your mining operations? We maintain stability. You maintain monopoly." Zephyr advanced slowly. "You've grown comfortable, Chancellor. Fat on profits and power. Then humans arrived. Young, hungry, adaptable humans who don't play by your ancient rules. Who colonize worlds you deemed worthless. Who build ships faster and cheaper than your corporations. Who dare to compete." The chamber had fallen silent. Every delegate watched the confrontation. "That's why you maneuvered us here," Zephyr continued. "Not because we're dangerous. Because we're competition. You want the Council to sanction us, cripple our expansion, eliminate the threat to Valdrix economic supremacy." Vorn's exoskeleton blazed white-hot. "This is slander. I demand." "You demand?" Reeves laughed, harsh and cold. "Chancellor, you don't understand. We're not here begging for Council approval. We're here as a courtesy. Humanity will continue expanding with or without Council permission. The only question is whether the galaxy wants us as partners or competitors." Arbiter Quellen's voice cut through the tension. "Commander Ashford, that sounds remarkably like a threat." "Not a threat, Arbiter. A reality check." Reeves met the Etherian's gaze steadily. Humans survived extinction events that would have ended any of your civilizations. We're not going to stop existing because it makes the Chancellor uncomfortable. So the Council has a choice: work with us or get out of our way. Unacceptable. Vorn's guards raised their weapons. In that moment, Zephyr knew they'd won. The Chancellor had lost control and everyone in the chamber could see it. She smiled. I believe we're due back in session, Arbiter. Shall we continue this discussion where the entire Council can witness it? Quellen's form pulsed with what might have been approval. Indeed. Chancellor Vorn, you will restrain your guards. This is a council proceeding, not a war zone. Not yet, Zephyr thought. But soon. The forgotten history. The council reconvened with heightened security. Delegates whispered behind energy fields, their earlier certainty replaced with unease. Zephyr noticed several species she'd never seen before entering the chamber, ancient beings who'd apparently been awakened from the council archives to observe. Arbiter Quellen addressed the assembly. In light of new evidence, the Council requires further examination. Ambassador Kane, you suggested Chancellor Vorn's perspective is limited by his empire's long dominance. Elaborate. Zephyr activated her display, but instead of showing human achievements, she projected ancient galactic maps. The assembly stirred with recognition. 12,000 cycles ago, the Valdrix were not an empire. They were a client species of the Karath Dominion, serving as miners and laborers. Does anyone remember the Karath? Silence answered her. Only the eldest delegates showed any recognition. The Karath controlled this galaxy absolutely. Their technology was unmatched. Their fleets unstoppable. They believed they would rule forever. Images appeared of massive structures, city ships that dwarfed planets. They grew complacent. When a plague struck their core worlds, they had no adaptability. Within 3 generations they were extinct. An elderly delegate from the Merisian Collective spoke, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. I remember the stories from my grandmother's grandmother. The Karath collapse created centuries of chaos. The Valdrix rose from that chaos. Exactly. Zephyr highlighted the timeline. The Valdrix succeeded not because they were superior, but because they were adaptable survivors. They remembered hardship. They built redundancies. They prepared for disasters. She paused. Just like humans do now. Vorn stood abruptly. This is irrelevant ancient history. Is it? Zephyr turned to face the gallery. How many of your civilizations have gone more than 1,000 cycles without a major conflict? Without a disaster that threatened your survival? The silence was telling. You've all become like the Karath. Comfortable. Complacent. You've forgotten what it means to fight for existence. That's why human behavior seems alien to you. We haven't forgotten. We can't afford to forget. Reeves added data streams to the display. In the 30 years since humanity achieved faster-than-light travel, we've survived. 17 colony plague outbreaks, 34 equipment failures that should have been fatal, 8 encounters with uncharted hazards, and 5 separate attempts by Valdrix, privateers, to destroy our settlements. We've lost 12,000 people. That's 12,000 reasons we build ships with weapons and colonize aggressively. A delegate from the insectoid Krillix hive spoke through chemical translators. You paint yourselves as perpetual victims. Yet you expand faster than any species in recorded history. You claim resources other civilizations discovered first. You militarize when the galaxy offers peace. Peace? Zephyr's voice sharpened. Arbiter Quellen, with respect, may I share a human concept? The Etherian pulsed agreement. We call it peace through strength. Your civilizations maintain peace because you're evenly matched. The Council enforces order because member species respect its authority backed by collective power. That's not peace. That's détente. The moment one faction gains overwhelming advantage, your peace evaporates. She pulled up recent data. In the past 50 cycles, there have been 237 minor incidents between Council species. Trade disputes settled with weapons. Border skirmishes. Sabotage. None escalated to full war because the balance of power held. But that balance is maintained through the threat of violence, not its absence. Humans simply acknowledge what you all pretend isn't true. Peace is maintained by the ability and willingness to defend it. We build ships not because we love war, but because we've seen what happens to species who can't protect themselves. An ancient delegate Zephyr didn't recognize spoke in a language so old the translators struggled. The words came out haltingly. The human remembers what we have forgotten. The universe does not care about our comfort. It tests us. Always. Vorn's exoskeleton flashed through rapid color changes. This is philosophy, not evidence. The fact remains that humans destabilize the established order. They threaten Valdrick's interests. There it is. Zephyr pounced. Not galactic security. Valdrick's interests. Thank you for the honesty, Chancellor. The assembly erupted in debate. Quellen struggled to restore order. When silence finally returned, another ancient voice spoke. The delegate's form was almost crystalline, barely visible. We are the preservers. We have witnessed the rise and fall of 14 galactic civilizations. Each believed they would endure forever. Each grew comfortable and perished. Perhaps, the humans are not a threat but a warning. Zephyr felt the momentum shifting. They weren't winning yet, but doubt had been planted. Vorn seemed to sense it too. His form went rigid, colors stabilizing into cold blue determination. If the Council will not act to protect established order, the Valdrick's Empire must reconsider our continued participation in these proceedings. We have alternatives. The threat was clear. The Valdricks could withdraw from the Council, taking their economic power with them. Chaos would follow. Reeves spoke quietly, but his words carried. Do you really want to discover what humans can accomplish without Council restrictions, Chancellor? Because I promise you we're far more dangerous when there are no rules. The ancient preserver spoke again. Perhaps a demonstration is required. Let us see what these humans truly are. Arbiter Quellen's form pulsed uncertainly. What do you propose? A test. The Helios sector remains unclaimed, dangerous, filled with hazards that have destroyed 17 expeditions. If humans are truly the survivors they claim, let them prove it. Colonize Helios. If they succeed, their nature is confirmed. If they fail. The delegate didn't need to finish. Zephyr met Reeves's eyes. This wasn't in the plan. Helios sector was a graveyard. It was also an opportunity. We accept, she said. Vorn's delighted laughter echoed through the chamber. The Helios Gambit. The news reached Earth within hours. Admiral Marcus Chin stood in the Situation Room beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet positions across human space. His weathered face revealed nothing as Zephyr's transmission ended. She accepted Helios. General Isabella Frost slammed her palm on the console. Without authorization, without consultation, she accepted a suicide mission. She did what was necessary, Chin replied calmly. Vorn backed her into a corner. Refusing would have validated every claim he's made about human cowardice. Accepting might kill every colonist we send there. Frost pulled up Helios sector data. 17 expeditions. 17 failures. Valdrick's, Krillix, Meridian, even an Etherian science vessel. All destroyed or forced to retreat. The sector has gravimetric anomalies, radiation storms, rogue asteroids moving at relativistic speeds. It's a meat grinder. Yes. Chin studied the data with veteran eyes that had seen worse. It's also resource-rich, strategically positioned, and currently unclaimed. If we succeed, we gain territory worth more than a dozen standard colonies. If we fail, we die trying, which is better than dying slowly under Valdrick sanctions. Frost stared at him. You're actually considering this. I'm past considering. Start reconfiguring the 5th Colonial Fleet for extreme hazard protocols. Retrofit every ship with enhanced shielding. Pull our best pilots from active duty. And find me someone crazy enough to lead this expedition. I already have someone in mind. A new voice entered the conversation. Captain Sienna Volkov stepped into the holographic array, her prosthetic arm gleaming under the lights. Scars ran across her dark skin, souvenirs from the New Perth incident. I volunteer. Chin evaluated her. Volkov had lost her original arm saving civilians during a Valdrick's attack. She'd also destroyed 3 enemy ships with a crippled frigate before reinforcements arrived. Her psychological profile included the words controlled rage and dangerously competent. Perfect. You'll have 50 ships, 15,000 colonists, and 6 months of supplies. After that, you're on your own. The Council specifically forbade resupply missions until you establish a permanent settlement. Or die trying. Volkov's smile was sharp. Understood, sir. I'll need full autonomy for tactical decisions. Helios won't be survived by committee. You'll have it. But Volkov understands something. Chen's expression hardened. This isn't just about colonization. It's about sending a message to the galaxy. If we fail conventionally, we fail with honor. But if someone sabotages this mission, if Vorn arranges an accident to eliminate the human problem, you are authorized to respond with extreme prejudice. Volkov's eyes gleamed. Define extreme prejudice, sir. If they want a war, Captain, give them one they'll remember for millennia. 3 weeks later, the 5th Colonial Fleet assembled at the edge of Helios sector. 50 ships, 20 military escorts, 15 colony vessels, 10 resource processors, 5 hospital ships. 15,000 souls who'd volunteered knowing the odds. Volkov broadcast to the fleet. We're about to enter territory that's destroyed everyone who tried before us. The Valdriks expect us to die. The Council expects us to fail. The entire galaxy is watching to see if humans are really what we claim to be. She paused, letting the moment build. Here's what they don't understand. We're not trying to conquer Helios. We're trying to survive it. And humans are very, very good at surviving. Every species before us tried to force Helios to submit. We're going to adapt to it instead. Learn its patterns. Respect its dangers. Become part of its ecosystem rather than its enemy. On the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, her crew waited for the order. All ships advance. Welcome to Helios. Try not to die on the first day. The fleet entered the sector. Within an hour, they understood why 17 expeditions had failed. Space itself seemed angry here. Gravimetric shears tore its shields. Radiation bursts appeared without warning, frying electronics. Asteroids the size of cities moved in chaotic orbits, remnants of planets torn apart by tidal forces from the sector's triple star system. The colony ship Prosperity took a glancing hit from debris. Hull breaches on 3 decks. 20 casualties. Evasive pattern Delta. Volkov commanded. All ships activate predictive navigation AI. Don't try to dodge manually. Let the computers plot safe corridors. The fleet scattered into smaller formations, each following computer-calculated paths through the chaos. It was counterintuitive. Every instinct said to group together for protection. But Volkov understood what others hadn't. Helios punished conventional tactics. On the 4th day they found the graveyard. 17 wrecks drifted in a relatively stable zone. Valdriks, Krillix, Merisian designs. The Etherian science vessel hung like a ghost, its energy form crew long since dissipated. Salvage teams scanned for recoverable technology and data logs, Volkov ordered. I want to know exactly how each expedition died. The answer came back quickly. They'd all tried to establish settlements on the sector's 3 marginally habitable planets. All 3 worlds were death traps. Seismic instability, toxic atmospheres, unpredictable weather that made terraforming impossible. Captain, her science officer reported, the planets aren't viable. But I've found something else. The asteroid clusters near the 7th orbital path. They're stable, rich in heavy metals. And they're large enough to be hollowed out. Volkov studied the data. Previous expeditions had dismissed the asteroids as worthless rocks. But to humans who'd built stations in Earth's asteroid belt, in Jupiter's orbit, in the crushing depths of Neptune's atmosphere. We're not colonizing planets, she announced. We're building cities in space. Start hollowing out the largest asteroids. Create habitats inside where the rock itself shields us from radiation. Use the extracted minerals to build more ships, more habitats, more infrastructure. Her crew stared at her. Captain, that's never been done on this scale, the engineer protested. It's never been done by humans before. Volkov's grin was predatory. Let's show the galaxy what we're capable of. The work began. Hollowing asteroids. Installing rotation for artificial gravity. Creating underground ecosystems where food could grow shielded from Helios's fury. It was brutal. Accidents killed dozens. Equipment failures stranded work crews. But slowly, impossibly, a city began taking shape in the void. They named it Defiance. And across the galaxy, billions watched in astonishment as humans did what 17 civilizations had deemed impossible. In the council chambers, Chancellor Vorn's crystalline form flickered through colors of rage and disbelief. He'd expected Helios to eliminate the human problem. Instead, he just made them legends. The hidden war. While Defiance grew in Helios, Ambassador Zephyr Kane discovered that survival would require more than engineering. The council had descended into factions, with Vorn rallying support for sanctions despite humanity's progress in Helios. They're not supposed to succeed, the Valdrik's chancellor declared in a closed session. Zephyr had obtained the recording through her Merisian contact, a junior delegate named Lyri who'd grown disillusioned with galactic politics. Helios should have destroyed them. Instead, they're thriving. This cannot stand. Zephyr played the recording for Reeves in their secured quarters. He's planning something. Every instinct I have says Vorn won't let Helios succeed. Agreed. Reeves pulled up tactical displays. Admiral Chen anticipated this. We've been monitoring Valdrik's fleet movements. 3 destroyer groups have gone dark. Communication blackout, transponders disabled. That's highly irregular for standard patrol routes. How far are they from Helios? If they're heading there? 4 days at maximum burn. Zephyr's blood went cold. He's going to claim pirates or raiders destroyed Defiance. Blame it on the sector's dangers. The Council will believe him because 17 expeditions already failed there. We need to warn Volkov. Communication with Helios is supposed to be forbidden until the colonization succeeds. If we break that restriction, Vorn can claim we cheated, invalidate the entire test. Reeves smiled grimly. Then we don't break it officially. There are ways. 6 hours later, an unmarked transport departed Station Lumina carrying what Manifest declared as agricultural supplies for the Martian colonies. Hidden in its cargo bay, a quantum communication relay was programmed to enter Helios sector and transmit a single encrypted burst before self-destructing. The message reached Defiance as Captain Volkov supervised construction on Habitat Ring 3. She read it twice, then began issuing orders. All military vessels, battle stations. Civilian ships, retreat to the asteroid clusters and power down everything except life support. Make yourselves invisible. Engineering, I need every rail gun and missile battery operational within 12 hours. Her XO objected. Captain, we're a colonial fleet. Those are Valdrick's destroyers. 3-to-1 odds and they have proper warships. They have proper warships designed for standard naval engagement, Volkov corrected. We have angry humans defending their home in an environment we've learned to navigate and they haven't. Advantage, us. The Valdrick strike force arrived 3 days later. Commander Thex led the assault, his orders simple. Destroy the human settlement, make it look like an accident caused by Helios's hazards, leave no survivors. Sensors detect multiple human vessels in the 7th orbital cluster, his tactical officer reported. They appear to be grouped around several large asteroids. Easy targets. Thex felt satisfaction. This would be finished quickly. All ships weapons free. Destroy everything. The destroyers advanced in standard formation, their plasma weapons charging. That's when Helios attacked them. Except it wasn't Helios. Volkov had spent weeks mapping every gravimetric anomaly, every radiation burst, every asteroid trajectory. Her people had created a database of the sector's deadly patterns. Now they used that knowledge as a weapon. Fire pattern Sierra, she commanded. Human railguns launched magnetically accelerated projectiles. Not at the Valdrick ships directly, but at asteroids in carefully calculated trajectories. The asteroids, already moving at tremendous speeds, were nudged into new vectors. Directly into the Valdrick's formation. Evasive. Thex screamed. But his ships were designed for space combat, not navigating Helios's chaos. The lead destroyer tried to avoid a mountain-sized rock and flew directly into a gravimetric shear. The ship tore apart, metal screaming as opposing forces ripped it in 2 directions simultaneously. The second destroyer managed to dodge, only to have Volkov's missiles emerge from behind a smaller asteroid cluster. At these ranges, point defense was useless. Explosions blossomed across its hull. The third destroyer's commander showed wisdom. He retreated, broadcasting distress signals. Volkov let him run. Cease fire. Recovery teams check for survivors. Medical, prepare for POWs. Communications, send this recording to Station Lumina. All channels, maximum broadcast. The recording showed everything. Valdrick's destroyers approaching a colonial settlement, opening fire unprovoked, human forces defending themselves. It showed the sector's dangers, yes, but it also showed human mastery of those dangers. Most importantly, it showed Valdrick's treachery. The transmission reached the Council within hours. The galaxy exploded in reaction. Chancellor Vorn stood before an emergency session, his crystalline form shifting through every color of distress. This is fabricated. Human propaganda. The fleet was on a standard patrol route. A patrol route through unclaimed territory currently undergoing a Council-sanctioned colonization test? Arbiter Quellen's energy form pulsed with cold anger. A patrol route that necessitated disabling all tracking transponders and enforcing communication blackouts? We have survivor testimony, Zephyr added, standing at the advocacy platform. Commander Thex transmitted his orders before his ship was destroyed. Orders explicitly stating he was to eliminate the human settlement and make it appear accidental. Orders that could only have come from someone with authority to deploy 3 destroyers without oversight. She turned to face Vorn directly. Orders that came from you, Chancellor. The assembly erupted. Delegates demanded explanations. Ancient species who rarely spoke now called for Vorn's removal. The Valdrix Empire's carefully maintained image of benevolent leadership crumbled in real time. Vorn's form blazed white with rage. "You dare accuse?" "I dare state facts," Zephyr interrupted. "Facts supported by evidence, by survivors, by your own fleet's communication logs. You attempted genocide, Chancellor. You tried to murder 15,000 humans to maintain your empire's supremacy. And you failed." Reeves stepped forward. "The question now is what happens next. The Valdrix Empire has committed an act of war against humanity. We have every right to respond in kind. Admiral Chin has authorized me to present terms." The chamber fell silent. The Valdrix Empire will publicly acknowledge their unprovoked attack. They will pay reparations to the families of humans killed in their raids over the past 3 years. They will cede all disputed territories to neutral council oversight. And Chancellor Vorn will resign his position and face council justice. Vorn's laughter echoed harshly. "You think you can dictate terms to the Valdrix Empire? We have 1,000 ships. We control half the galaxy's economy. You are barely a century old as a spacefaring species." "Yes," Reeves agreed calmly. "We're young, aggressive, adaptable, dangerous. We just survived Helios and destroyed a Valdrix strike force in the process. Now imagine what we'll do if you force us into a real war. Imagine human ingenuity applied to destruction instead of creation. Imagine 15 billion angry humans with nothing to lose." He paused, letting the image sink in. "Or imagine us as partners. Humans bringing fresh perspectives to an aging galaxy. Humans revitalizing industries and opening new possibilities. Humans reminding you all what it means to strive for something greater. The choice," Zephyr concluded, "is yours, Chancellor. But choose wisely. Because humanity is done asking for permission to exist." The vote came 3 days later. Vorn was removed from power. The Valdrix Empire accepted the terms. And humanity earned its seat at the council table. But Zephyr knew this was only beginning. The new order. 6 months after the Helios incident, the galaxy had transformed. Defiance thrived as humans continued building asteroid cities, creating a model for extreme environment colonization. The Valdrix Empire, now led by Consul Meridax, a reformist who'd opposed Vorn's aggressive policies, struggled to adapt to their diminished status. Ambassador Zephyr Kane occupied humanity's newly established council seat. Today marked her first proposal as a full council member. "The colonial expansion accords are 3,000 cycles old," she announced, her voice carrying across the amphitheater. "They were written by civilizations that no longer exist, for a galaxy that no longer applies. I propose comprehensive reform." The assembly stirred. Changing council law was rare, difficult, and typically took decades of negotiation. The current accords favor established empires. They create artificial scarcity by restricting how many worlds can be claimed per cycle. They punish adaptation and reward stagnation. Zephyr displayed galactic maps showing claimed versus unclaimed space. 63% of potentially habitable systems remain untouched because the accords make development economically prohibitive for younger species. Consul Meridax spoke, his crystalline form now a muted blue of thoughtful consideration. "Ambassador Kane, while the Valdrix Empire acknowledges past errors, we cannot simply abandon all established structures. The accords prevent chaos. Without them, we risk territory wars consuming the galaxy." "The accords haven't prevented conflicts," Reeves interjected from his position as human military liaison. "They've frozen them. Every dispute of the last millennia traces back to unclear borders and outdated claims. We're not proposing chaos. We're proposing clarity." Zephyr continued, "Humanity's proposal has 3 core principles. First, systems must be actively developed within 50 cycles or claims expire. No more hoarding empty worlds for theoretical future use. Second, younger species get preferential access to unclaimed systems matching their environmental needs. Third, all territorial disputes go to binding arbitration before a neutral council tribunal." The Krillix hive representative chittered through chemical translators. "This disadvantages species who have built empires over millennia. Why should we surrender territory to newcomers?" "Because empires that don't evolve become fossils," an unexpected voice answered. The ancient preserver delegate materialized, rarely seen since the Helios test. "We have watched civilizations rise and fall. The human proposal has merit. It incentivizes growth over stagnation. It rewards activity over possession." Arbiter Quellen pulsed thoughtfully. This represents fundamental restructuring of galactic order. Such changes require overwhelming consensus. We cannot simply. Why not? Zephyr challenged. With respect, Arbiter, the galaxy changed the moment humans arrived. We proved that adaptation beats tradition. That innovation defeats complacency. You can either embrace that reality or fight it. But fighting it means more conflicts like the one we just survived. A Merisian elder delegate spoke, her 4 eyes blinking in careful sequence. The human makes valid points. My own species has claimed 17 systems we lack resources to develop. Meanwhile, 3 younger civilizations have petitioned for access to those worlds. Under current accords, we must refuse them. This creates resentment and instability. Other delegates began voicing similar experiences. The floodgates opened as species after species acknowledged the system's failures. Consul Meridax surprised everyone by standing. The Valdrix Empire supports this proposal. Chancellor Vorn's regime demonstrated what happens when power becomes more important than progress. We will not repeat those mistakes. The vote took 2 days of deliberation. When it concluded, the reforms passed with 73% approval, the largest margin for systemic change in council history. As delegates celebrated or protested, Zephyr found herself approached by the Preserver. You have done something remarkable, human Zephyr. You have reminded the galaxy how to grow. The ancient being's crystalline form shimmered. But understand, you have also painted a target on your species. Those who prospered under the old system will not forget. They will test you again. Let them, Zephyr replied. Humans are very good at tests. In Helios sector, Captain Volkov received news of the council vote while overseeing completion of Defiance's 5th habitat ring. The asteroid city now housed 20,000 humans and had become a destination for scientists from across the galaxy who wanted to study extreme environment colonization. Captain, we have incoming vessels, her sensor officer reported. Multiple signatures. They're not military. Volkov pulled up the display. 40 ships representing 20 different species. All broadcasting civilian credentials and requesting docking permission. What's happening? They're colonists, ma'am. They want to settle in Helios. They're asking if humans will teach them our techniques. Volkov stared at the screen, then began laughing. Of course they are. Tell them yes. And charge them consulting fees. If we're going to be the galaxy's survival experts, we might as well profit from it. Within weeks, Helios transformed from humanity's proving ground to the galaxy's frontier training center. Species learned to hollow asteroids, to navigate extreme environments, to adapt rather than terraform. The techniques humans had developed out of necessity became the template for a new age of expansion. Back on Earth, Admiral Chin reviewed reports with General Frost. The strategic situation had shifted dramatically. We've gone from embargoed outcasts to galactic consultants in less than a year, Frost observed. 27 species have requested human advisors for their colonial programs. The Valdrix are actually paying us to help restructure their resource extraction methods. It's almost suspicious how quickly things changed, Chin replied carefully. You think it's a trap? I think we solved one problem and created another. We're no longer the underdogs fighting for survival. We're becoming influential. That brings different dangers. Frost nodded. The Preserver warned Ambassador Kane. There are species who profited from the old system. They won't accept change peacefully. Then we prepare for the next challenge. Chin pulled up defensive projections. Double our shipyard production. Establish listening posts in contested regions. And make sure every colony is self-sufficient for at least a year. We survive by being paranoid. We'll thrive by staying that way. On Station Lumina, Zephyr stood before the council one final time before returning to Earth for consultations. 6 months ago, I stood here defending humanity's right to exist, she said. Today I stand here as proof that youth and age can cooperate. That innovation and tradition can coexist. That the galaxy is large enough for all of us if we're willing to share it. She paused, scanning the assembly. But let me be clear, humanity will never again ask permission to survive. We will cooperate with those who respect us, compete with those who challenge us, and defeat those who threaten us. This is not arrogance. This is who we are. This is what evolution on a death world teaches. The Valdrix Empire learned this lesson the hard way. They're recovering now, finding their place in a galaxy that no longer belongs solely to them. Other species can choose to learn from their example, or they can force us to teach the lesson again. Humanity prefers partnership. But we're prepared for anything. Arbiter Quellen's energy form pulsed with what might have been approval. Noted, Ambassador Kane. The Council looks forward to continued cooperation with humanity. As Zephyr departed the chamber, Reeves fell into step beside her. That sounded almost like a threat, he observed. It was a promise, she corrected. We've proven we can survive. Now we prove we can lead. And if others don't want to follow? Zephyr smiled. Then we'll remind them why trying to stop humanity is the galaxy's biggest mistake. They walked toward their transport, leaving behind a council chamber forever changed by a species barely a century old in space. The Valdrix Empire had made a mistake inviting humans to address the Galactic Council. They'd expected victims to plead for mercy. Instead, they'd unleashed a force that would reshape the entire galaxy. The Human Era. 3 years after Zephyr Kane's first address to the Galactic Council, the galaxy barely resembled what it had been. Humanity's colonial expansion reforms had triggered an unprecedented wave of exploration and settlement. Younger species claimed territories that had languished empty for millennia. Ancient empires restructured their holdings or watched them dissolve. The changes hadn't come peacefully everywhere. Ambassador Kane stood in the council chambers reviewing casualty reports from the outer spiral conflicts. 7 species had formed what they called the Preservation Coalition, resisting the new order. Their attacks on frontier colonies, human and non-human alike, had killed thousands. They're getting bolder, Reeves said, studying tactical projections. Last week's raid on the Krillix settlement used military-grade weapons. Someone with deep pockets is funding them. The question is who, Consul Meridax added. The Valdrix leader had become an unlikely ally, his reformed empire embracing a partnership with humanity that benefited both species. We've traced some financial flows to the Corvantine sector, but the trails disappear into shell corporations. Arbiter Quellen materialized beside them. The Council requests humanity's assistance with a delicate matter. We have intelligence suggesting the Preservation Coalition is planning a major attack. The target appears to be Defiance. Zephyr's expression hardened. Captain Volkov won't take kindly to that. Which is why we're sending you to coordinate the defense, Quellen replied. Officially as a Council observer. Unofficially to ensure the response is proportionate. In Helios sector, Defiance had grown into a city of 50,000 souls, humans and aliens living together in the asteroid habitats. Captain Sienna Volkov, now promoted to sector commander, had transformed the settlement into the galaxy's premier extreme environment research center. She received Zephyr's warning with characteristic calm. How many ships are we expecting? Intelligence suggests at least 30 vessels. Multiple species well armed. They want to make a statement by destroying humanity's greatest achievement. Volkov's scarred face split into a predatory smile. Then let's make sure they regret that statement. I have a few surprises prepared. The Preservation Coalition fleet arrived 4 days later, led by a Corvantine admiral named Thrace. His species had dominated regional trade for centuries before humanity's reforms opened their markets to competition. Now he led extremists who believed the old order could be restored through force. Sensors detect the human settlement, his tactical officer reported. 53 major structures, approximately 300 smaller facilities. Defensive grid appears minimal. Overconfident fools, Thrace declared. All ships attack formation. We'll reduce their precious Defiance to rubble, and the galaxy will see that humans aren't invincible. The fleet advanced. Then Helios itself seemed to wake up. Except this time humans weren't just using the sector's natural hazards. They'd weaponized them. Volkov had spent 3 years mapping every gravimetric anomaly, every radiation pocket, every asteroid trajectory. Her people had installed gravity generators on key asteroids, allowing them to amplify or redirect the sector's natural forces. They'd seeded the space around Defiance with autonomous defense platforms disguised as debris. The Coalition fleet flew into a trap more sophisticated than anything they'd imagined. Fire, Volkov commanded. Gravity generators activated, creating artificial shears that tore at ship hulls. Radiation bursts, natural phenomena focused and directed by human technology, fried electronic systems. Asteroids that should have been predictable suddenly changed course, guided by hidden thrusters. And when the Coalition ships broke formation trying to escape the chaos, human warships emerged from behind the larger asteroids. The battle lasted 17 minutes. 20 Coalition vessels were destroyed. 8 were captured. 2 escaped to tell the tale. Admiral Thrace died when his flagship was crushed between 2 asteroids that Volkov's people had guided into a collision course. His final transmission was a scream of disbelief. The recording spread across the galaxy within hours. Species watched in shock as humans demonstrated complete mastery of an environment that had destroyed 17 civilizations. The Preservation Coalition's message of resistance died with their fleet. But Zephyr knew the real message was different. She stood before an emergency council session the next day, broadcasting to billions across the galaxy. The attack on Defiance was meant to prove that humanity's rise could be stopped through violence, she began. Instead, it proved the opposite. We didn't just defend our settlement. We dominated an enemy force in the most hostile environment in known space. We turned the galaxy's graveyard into our fortress. Her voice carried absolute confidence. But here's what some of you still don't understand. This isn't about human superiority. We're not trying to replace the Valdrix Empire or any other power. We're trying to elevate everyone. The techniques we developed in Helios are freely shared. The defensive systems we built are available to any species that wants them. We succeed when the galaxy succeeds. She paused, letting that sink in. However, those who confuse cooperation with weakness will learn the same lesson as Admiral Thrace. Humanity will defend itself and its allies with overwhelming force. We prefer partnership, but we're exceptional at war. The Preservation Coalition believed the old order could be restored. They were wrong. The galaxy has changed and it's not changing back. Species can adapt and thrive in this new era, or they can resist and disappear. But they cannot stop what's already begun. Consul Meridax stood, his crystalline form radiating support. The Valdrix Empire stands with humanity. The reforms have brought prosperity we never imagined under the old system. We call on all species to embrace this new age rather than fight it. One by one, other delegates rose in agreement. Even some who'd been skeptical 3 years ago now recognized the truth. Humanity hadn't destroyed galactic civilization. They'd saved it from stagnation. The Preserver appeared one final time, ancient and wise. We have witnessed 14 civilizations rise and fall, the being said. Each believed they would last forever. Each grew comfortable and perished. Humanity has reminded us that survival requires constant adaptation. They have given the galaxy a gift, the chance to evolve rather than decline. We name this era the Human Age not because humans dominate, but because they embody what all species must remember. Growth requires change and change requires courage. The declaration sent shockwaves through galactic culture. Within weeks the name stuck. Historians began dating events from humanity's arrival. Philosophers debated what the Human Age meant for civilization's future. On Earth, Admiral Chin and General Frost stood in the Situation Room, monitoring humanity's expanding influence. "We've come a long way from being embargoed outcasts," Frost observed. "We've also made ourselves indispensable," Chin replied. "That brings security but also responsibility. Every conflict in the galaxy will now involve us somehow. Every species will either seek our alliance or fear our opposition." Sounds exhausting. Sounds like survival. Chin smiled slightly. "We spent millennia fighting for our place on one planet. Now we're fighting for our place in the galaxy. The scale changed but the principle didn't." In Helios Sector, Commander Volkov watched new ships arrive daily. Scientists, colonists, traders, refugees from the Preservation Coalition's territories. Defiance had become a symbol, proof that adaptation beats tradition, that innovation defeats complacency. She received a transmission from Zephyr. "Commander, the Council wants you to lead an expedition to the Dark Star Expanse. Another, impossible region that's defeated every attempt at exploration. They think humans might succeed where others failed." Volkov laughed. "Of course they do. When do we leave?" "That's what I like about you, Sienna. Never any hesitation. Life's too short for hesitation, Ambassador. Especially human life." Volkov glanced at the thriving city she'd built from asteroids and determination. "Besides, impossible is just another word for not yet achieved." She signed off and turned to her crew. "Start preparing for deep space operations. Apparently we have another death trap to conquer." Her people cheered. They were humans after all. Challenges weren't obstacles. They were opportunities. Ambassador Zephyr Kane stood at a viewport on Station Lumina, watching ships from 1,000 worlds pass by. 3 years ago, she'd stood before a hostile council defending humanity's right to exist. Now she represented a species that had become the galaxy's unexpected leaders. Commander Reeves joined her at the viewport. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About which part? Challenging the Valdrix Empire? Accepting the Helios test? Reshaping galactic law? Any of it?" Zephyr considered the question seriously. "No. We did what humans do. We survived, adapted, and thrived. We turned our greatest weakness, being young and inexperienced, into our greatest strength. We had nothing to lose and everything to prove. And now we have something to protect. That's more dangerous in some ways. But it's also what makes us who we are. She smiled. The Valdricks made a mistake letting us address the council. They thought we'd embarrass ourselves and fade into obscurity. Instead, we changed everything. Instead, we reminded the galaxy what it means to be alive. To struggle. To grow. To reach for something greater even when the odds say you'll fail. They stood together, watching the endless flow of ships, the arteries of a civilization that had been stagnant for millennia and was now pulsing with new life. The Valdricks Empire's mistake hadn't been allowing humans to speak before the council. Their mistake had been believing that youth was weakness, that tradition was strength, that the old order would last forever. Humanity had proven them wrong on every count. And in doing so had earned not just their place among the stars, but their place in history. The human age had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same.